There is an embarrassing number of ways to do this. Uh, there's three approaches to get off of oil. First is conservation. People, I've not become serious about conservation. 70% of the oil in this country is used for transportation. So we need to go to much lighter automobiles. We here at NASA are working on boron nitride nanotubes, which can lighten an automobile, if it all works out, a factor of 3 to 5. This is a factor of 3 to 5 better gas mileage.
Now, sorry, it sounds more like you're talking about efficiency than conservation.
Efficiency produces conservation. Okay, conservation is use less of it as opposed to substituting something else for it. Okay, so efficiency and conservation I view as the same thing. Besides lighter automobiles, the Europeans have gone to diesels. We haven't. Diesels are about 22% more efficient. There's also regenerative braking, which are in very few of our cars. There's taking the heat, which now goes out the exhaust pipe, and using thermoelectrics and pyroelectrics to produce electricity out of that to then go back into the motivation. So the first way is a conservation. The second way is to go to electrical or pressurized air cars. And I'll come back to later on where you get the electricity, because this is not simple. The third way and the best way and the dominant way forward is, of course, biofuels. Biofuels take up the CO2, and then when you burn them, it goes back. It's a closed CO2 cycle. But biofuels today, as we have worked them, are based upon fresh water and arable land. We're running out of fresh water. If you pulped every blade of grass in the country, you're up to about 30 to 35% of the biofuels that you need to replace petroleum. We can't do it with fresh water and arable land. We just can't. So what do we do? Well, it turns out that there's an alternative universe in the plant world which are called halophytes. Halo means salt. So these are salt plants. There's 10,000 salt plants worldwide, natural salt plants, and we're working genomic variations of them. The Indians have had on their shorelines a brackish saltwater irrigation agriculture for hundreds of years where they grow food and fodder with these salt plants. 44% of the land worldwide are wastelands, the Sahara, Western Australia, the Southwest US. Just on a good chunk of the Sahara, if you plowed it up and irrigated it with the Mediterranean, salt water, salt plants, you could grow enough biomass to replace all the fossil carbon, not just the petroleum. You could also grow all of the petrochemical feedstock you need to replace all of, to produce all of the plastics anybody wants. And you could produce food so that you get back some of the 68% of the fresh water that now goes into conventional agriculture because we're running out of fresh water. Okay? So halophytes, salt plants, are capable of solving land because it brings wastelands into production. Solves land, water, replaces fresh water for food, land, water, food, energy, and climate.
How much of the oil problem can it solve?
100%. It's capable of solving all of the fossil carbon problem, not just oil. Just
these halophytes?
Just the halophytes. Okay?
So would you say that halophytes are our strongest weapon against our dependence on oil?
I'm not through yet. Halophytes are a way to go. Halophytes produce about 700 to 800 gallons per acre year. There are two other approaches to biofuels that are capable of 2,000 to 20,000 gallons per acre year, some allege, compared to the 700, that also use salt water and wastewater and non-arable land. And these are algae and cyanobacteria. Algae is right now too expensive We need to get the cost down. A lot of people are working algae. It's very productive, but currently very expensive. Then we have cyanobacteria, which is the one we've worked least on, but there's some very recent interesting work from Jewel Biotechnologies who are claiming 20,000 gallons per acre year using wastewater, saltwater, wastelands at $50 a barrel. Algae is much more expensive than that. Halophytes are about $50 a barrel, but halophytes are only 700 gallons per acre a year in terms of productivity. So halophytes for food and maybe cyanobacteria for the biofuels. Okay, so what we have, as I said, an embarrassment of riches on ways to do this. Okay, we have this huge nascent possibility. It's not just Jewel Biotechnology, it's also several other companies now coming through with the genomic cyanobacteria to produce this stuff. Algae, which is a lipid, is up to 80% oil. You can take and put the algae in an olive oil press, make biodiesel directly, and so forth. The Brits have a bioreactor they're selling that goes in your back porch. You put in your sewage, your kitchen scraps, your yard waste, and you produce fuel for your automobile. And this is another whole way to work the energy situation, which is distributed production. We have right now 200,000 off-grid homes in the U.S. not connected to the electrical grid. We can do it now. You can take with a credit card and either buy this thing or buy the plans for it. We are doing much better micro wind. We're doing much better photovoltaics, doing much better solar thermal, and the biotechnology, bioreactors, so that instead of central power plants and central sources for petroleum and so forth, or petroleum replacements, people can do their own energy.